I participated in the Brackeys 2022 Game Jam, and it went pretty well, I think. I needed a break from working on networking in my main game Couch Combat, so instead of actually taking a break, I decided to join in the Brackeys Game Jam, and I dedicated all my free time for 2 days to doing a game jam. Refreshing. So for this jam, the theme is It Is Not Real, so I thought really hard and long about it, and, well, I decided to ignore the theme completely. Honestly, I'm tired of generic game jam themes, and besides, most of the time I already have a core idea for my jam game, so having to fit it around a theme is just annoying. I don't care about scoring well in the jam, so I'm just gonna completely ignore the theme and just make what I want to make. So, what is this game idea anyways? Well, it's more like a mechanic, but basically the game is a top-down shooter where you have a baseball bat. But the only way that you can deal damage with it is by hitting a ball that bounces around the scene. I don't want to make the game all about chasing the ball though. It's more about a timing thing, that way you can focus on the enemies. I don't know if this mechanic will work, so that's the reason why I'm making it in a game jam first. So let's get jamming. Whenever I was initially laying out plans, I had pretty ridiculous ideas. I wanted to do a 2.5D art design and maybe even make the game into a mini roguelike, but I quickly cut down my plans into a simple arcade game in 2D. I really want to try 2.5D in the future, but I'll definitely need more time to do it. I'm using Milanote to plan out the game, which is a great program for planning and designing games and other projects, and I'm using it in addition to Trello. And I went right into making the game, starting with top-down movement. I've done this several times for game jams and other projects, so I just reused a bit of code and focused on getting lots of polish. I added dust particles and also made some animations using the Unity animator for the movement system. Pixel art purists will probably hate me for this, but I use rotation and scale to make the animations bouncy and dynamic. Game feel matters, and I think that my game is way better thanks to these few improvements. My next task was to make the unique attack system for the game. But your next task is to wishlist my game Couch Combat on Steam. Incredible segue, I know, but Couch Combat is a sports game multiplayer FPS that I'm developing. It takes inspiration from games like Stick Fight the Game and will also have online multiplayer on release. You can play the demo for free right now, and wishlisting really helps support my channel. Wishlisting is the best free way that you can support my channel, and since I have no marketing budget, it's very appreciated as it means that Steam will recommend my game to more people. Okay, ad over. Where were we? Oh yeah, murder. The attack system was pretty simple to put together. It's basically just a bat that rotates around the player that plays the animation when clicked that activates a hitbox. I made sure to add a slash line alongside a screen shake and even some chromatic aberration to make the attack feel good. But you aren't actually going to directly hit the enemies with a baseball bat to deal damage. Instead, you had to hit the ball. So I started by just making a super simple ball for rigid body and set the bounciness of the physics material to 1. The only code necessary for this system was just setting the velocity of the ball whenever it's hit by the bat. Now, this system certainly works, but it's a little bit impossible to use. The ball just bounces randomly around, and that really doesn't work for my game. I want the focus of the game to be more on timing and aiming at enemies rather than chasing the ball, so I'm going to program a custom bouncing solution. Making the ball always bounce to the player is pretty simple for my game for one main reason. The room is always just going to be surrounding walls. The way it works is just by pointing the ball at the player whenever it hits the wall and applying force in that direction. If there were more walls, then they can get in the way. For this game jam, I decided to leave the room simple, that way I wouldn't have to deal with this problem. But if I had to fix a case like that, I think I would just bounce the ball regularly until it has line of sight with the player. Next, I just had to make a combo system. The idea for the combo system is if you hit the ball many times in a row, then it'll continually increase in speed and damage. As the speed increases, it'll be harder to hit, and continuing the combo will also be harder. But the damage increase is obviously a good thing. I set the system up fairly simply, just applying a flat increase to damage as combo increases. Combo works with a timer that is continually counting down, and is reset whenever you successfully hit the ball. But the baseball mechanic was feeling pretty flat, so it's polished time. I increased the screen shake whenever you hit the ball because you can never have enough screen shake, and I also added a line renderer that increases in opacity as it speeds up. And also I made the ball stretch in the direction that it is moving. This creates a cool effect similar to what you might see in 2D animation, and I really think it helps tell the speed of the ball. And enemies are the last part I need for this to actually be a playable game, so let's do that. The enemies are split up into a few scripts, a control one that manages the health and other scripts, the movement script, and the optional shooting script. The movement script for the basic enemy moves in bursts at the player, aiming the same way the bullet does. The enemy also waits until its velocity is near 0 before starting to jump at the player again. This actually led to the enemy getting stunned whenever it's attacked, which is pretty cool, so I kept it. Speaking of being attacked by the player, I also made the slime take damage and get knocked back by the ball. The slime has a simple hit effect of just flashing white, and a nice amount of screen shake is also triggered. I was planning on adding corpses of the enemies for whenever they die, but it didn't really work out and it was just more clutter on the screen. So I removed it and instead opted to make some nice particles for whenever the enemy takes damage and whenever it dies. I finished up the first day by just putting together the basics of UI for the combo system. It's a big bar that reduces its X scale as the combo runs out, and there's also a number in the middle that shows what number of the combo you're on. The UI works, but it's not really satisfying, so I want to add some animations to it tomorrow to make it feel really good, but that'll have to wait. And on day 2, that's exactly where I started. I made the combo UI animate, and I also made the ball slow down after each bounce. This makes it so that actually keeping up combos is more important now, as the ball won't just keep bouncing at a high speed nearly indefinitely. I also threw together an enemy spawner that I don't plan on keeping. And so the final step for the game before I can get into content polish and art was player def and damage. It's handled very similarly to enemy damage, but nevertheless I stuck in some particles, screen shake, and even made an animated player corpse that appears whenever you die. And well, now it's actually really satisfying to die in the game. I don't know if that's a good thing. I built out the second enemy, who has a gun. It's pretty simple. I just slowed down the enemy and made it shoot a bullet whenever it moves. The bullet aims at the player just like the baseball, and I made sure to make it look very different from the baseball so that people don't get them confused. It was at this time that I began replacing all the art in the game. I made a simple grass tile set that I think looks really nice, but the slimes blend in way too much because of the color palette, so I decided to recolor them all to different colors. This has the added benefit of making the enemies easier to distinguish between. After this, I made several enemies. A ninja enemy, which is just a normal enemy with longer weights and much larger jumps. The aforementioned shooting enemy, who got redesigned, and the missile slime, which looks a bit suggestive. The missile slime shoots tracking missiles while sitting still, but the missiles go way too slow and I forgot to correct it, so it's kind of a useless enemy. I finished up the art by making a full tile set with walls and then changing the grass on the blue to make it easy to tell where the walls are. The only other things I did to the game were making some sound effects. The bat used a copyright-free sound that I got that pitches up higher with each combo hit, but for the player hurt sounds and enemy damage sounds, I made them with BFXR, which is a tool that randomly generates retro SFX for games, which is very handy for jams. I polished it all up, exported it for HTML, and submitted the game after just about 48 hours of work. So, how did the game turn out? Well, it's easily one of my simplest game jams I've made recently, but I like it. The mechanic is pretty unique. The only other game that I can think of that does something similar to it is Lethal League. The game feels great to play because of all the particles, screen shake, and animation, and they were totally worth the extra time to implement. Making the game was also quite fun. I've been slowly working through networking for my main project, Couch Combat, so just getting to make something quickly was refreshing. And I also love working in 2D, as it's much more straightforward and easy to add polish and make art for. I regret that I didn't have a better spawning system, as I was planning on making a wave-based system to make the game a little bit better, but instead it's just the randoms, which really doesn't help the game. But I just ran out of time, so whatever, it's fine. But in retrospective, since this game was mostly just me prototyping for a mechanic, do I think the mechanic is fun? Well, sort of. I didn't quite get it to the exact sort of mechanic I wanted this time, but I think I can change things up if I ever want to add this to a future game. I want the mechanic to basically be the same as a normal gun, but with a sort of active reload or attack timing mechanic. So I think the positioning should be completely removed from the equation, allowing you to focus on dodging bullets instead. The ball will automatically seek you out, and a barb of the player will indicate whenever it's in range. You'll get a much bigger attack and speed boost if you hit exactly when you should, but if you miss by a bit, there will be a grace period that still performs the attack. It'll just be a bit weaker. This also means that it'll be possible to focus on aiming a bit more, which is definitely a good thing. And so I think that implementation of the mechanic in a similar way to this will be pretty fun for a future game. But anyways, that's all. Thank you all to my one and only Patreon, Howard House, and please wishlist my game. I'm begging you. Bye.